Good day, Internet. This is DTNS Live for Monday, March 17th, 2025. From Studio Animal House, I'm Sarah Lane.
From Studio 7 in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tom Merritt.
From Studio Deep in the heart of Texas, I'm Justin Robert Young.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
Daily Tech News Show Live is made possible through an underwritten grant from you. Thank you for your check mailed directly to me and or your patronage at patreon.com/DTNS. Mark Gibson, Reed Fischler, and Larry Bailey.
Yay!
Hooray!
Welcome to DTNS Live, the show where my smoke alarm decides to do that every 30-second beep. Happened 5 seconds before we started, so my
Good
apologies in
timing, smoke
advance. But this is the show where, despite this, the show must go on. We discuss the tech news to help us all understand it a little bit better, smoke alarms and all. How you doing, Justin Robert Young?
I'm doing fantastic, Sarah. I'm really
I'm
glad
happy to
you
hear
asked.
that.
This is going to be an amazing show because no matter what, the DTNS faithful, you deserve a synthesized tech news blend that is nutritious and delicious.
Yeah. It is a part of a balanced news diet, you might
Indeed.
say. Yeah.
Well, on that note, I think we should check out some quick hits.
Okay. A coalition of more than 80 European tech companies and organizations sent an open letter to the European Commission calling for a sovereign digital infrastructure, including the development of a Euro stack and a Buy European mandate.
Roblox introduced Cube 3D, an AI tool that creates 3D objects from text prompts by tokenizing 3D shapes, similar to how language models generate text. According to Roblox, it's trained on a mix of licensed and public and its own ecosystem data. The company plans to expand it to support image inputs, making it a multimodal model integrated within its existing AI creation tools.
Spectrum will offer a streaming-only subscription to Sportsnet LA for the first time this season. So if you're a Dodger fan, you can, or if you just watch the Dodgers, I guess, you can watch games without a cable package. SNLA Plus, as it is called, will cost you $30 per month or $200 a year. But for that, you'll get the live and archived games, pregame and postgame shows, and a bunch of other Dodgers-related content through MLB.com or the MLB app, only in the local market. If you're outside the local market, you can get the games through MLB at bat because they're not blacked out. Dodgers are the 23rd MLB team to offer streaming direct to fans in market.
French authorities gave founder and CEO of Telegram, Pavel Durov, the go-ahead to return to Dubai temporarily between March 15th, that was over the weekend, and April 7th, with judicial supervision continuing afterward. Durov was arrested back in August in Paris over accusations that he failed to moderate the app to prevent various criminal activities. He denied those. The platform has since added new moderation efforts, however, including joining a program to combat child abuse material and committing to sharing user data with authorities when legally required.
So you promise to come back, right? You will not stay in Dubai?
Yeah, we'll see.
Amazon Devices chief Panos Panay is on a little charm offensive here to talk about Amazon as a hardware maker, telling Bloomberg the company is working on new re-engineered high-end gadgets. So they'll still have the regular gadgets, but they're going to go high-end. And the high-end gadgets that have things like better speakers, better battery life, better security. This is all, of course, going in line with the better Alexa that they plan to introduce later this year. Not you. Panay left Microsoft for Amazon around 18 months ago, where he had previously helped launch the Surface tablet. He's a hardware guy. He was a hardware guy at Microsoft. He's a hardware guy at Amazon.
Some users of Google's Gemini 2.0 Flash model report that they can effectively remove watermarks from certain images, not all of them, but some from something like Getty Images or another stock media provider. Google expanded free access to Gemini 2.0 Flash's image generation feature last week, although it's still labeled as experimental and not for production use. Competing models like Anthropic's Claude 3.7 Sonnet and OpenAI's GPT-4o explicitly refuse to remove watermarks, which, without consent, is almost always considered illegal under U.S. copyright law. I said Anthropic, Tom.
I heard.
We all decided on Anthropic.
I'm a horrible influence. I apologize.
Yeah,
It's fine.
It is
fine.
misanthropic.
I've
just-
even
it just
stopped
happened.
sayed it. Yeah, it just
Well,
got in your head.
Yeah, I've regressed. All right, so
I'll say Yahoo at some point instead of Yahoo later.
I remember that. Alphabet is spinning off Taara into an independent company. Taara uses laser light to transmit data at 20 gigabits per second over 20 kilometers between tower-based terminals, promising to be more affordable and quicker than a satellite service like Starlink, because it can utilize existing structures, a telephone pole, for example, maybe a tall tree, the right kind of building. Taara already works with some telecom firms like Bharti Airtel and T-Mobile to expand fiber networks, currently active in 12 countries, including a 5-kilometer link across the Congo River, and can also supplement overloaded mobile phone networks at a big event. Think Coachella, for example.
I look at this and I think a lot of people are going to say, oh, Alphabet's other bets never succeed except for Waymo, right? Because it seems like they're either shutting down or spinning off these kind of companies. But I think what happened here is this is a good idea, but maybe not a business of its own. So when you spin it out instead of shutting it down, often that is preparatory to selling it. So Alphabet's the major shareholder here, but they might want to sell it to somebody. And this would go well into the kind of folks who build infrastructure for backhaul on connectivity. We mentioned someone in our open who supports the show who works in this industry, so I feel like I should have asked them before we talked about this today. But I imagine that's the idea, is like this is a proven technology. It may or may not be a profitable business, but if we put it out as a subsidiary, somebody who does all kinds of other things might be willing to put it into their portfolio of infrastructure build out.
Or there are other reasons to spin it out. Waymo was spun out in 2016 from Alphabet the exact same way. Waymo is a company that now seems to have chased a lot of other pretenders in the self-driving stuff. So they've done well for themselves. I do not think that Taara is that. However, I do not think that I agree with you that in the upside, Taara has less of it. Although I don't know if it is acquisition bait. I
had to check. Waymo's still part of Alphabet, though.
It's just not part of the incubator anymore.
It's a subsidiary
of Alphabet. Yeah.
Yeah. So they turned it into its own company, but kept it under Alphabet. Whereas with Taara, they're just like
taking it out of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair point.
All right. Sorry. Carry on.
I think this is about Alphabet's balance sheet. And I think that they want to take things that are kind of expensive out of it. And Taara's juice is not worth the squeeze.
Yeah.
Financially.
You're probably right. And actually, we could both be right. They may be looking to sell it off, but also don't want it on the balance sheet in the time being. So
if this is a balance sheet thing and they had the possibility that they could sell it, they just sell it and get the credit for selling it, right? Mm-hmm. But if they spin it out, then they're saying, maybe you sell, maybe you don't.
Yeah.
Operate for as long as you can, but at least every time that we have to report a financial quarter, we're not.
It does imply that they didn't have any takers right away, but
yes.
They think, but they could be thinking, well, if we can show it clean on its own, then somebody might see the value in it. Yeah. You're definitely right, though. They don't want this on the balance sheet one way or another. Maybe they think they can turn it into a business and then bring it back in later on. That could be a thing they're doing too.
I don't know. I mean, this seems really valuable to me. I live in an urban area, but if you don't, having infrastructure that doesn't require you to have a Starlink account, which, by the way, works really well for a lot of people. So I'm not saying that that's a bad idea, but having other options in areas where there's enough infrastructure to expand a fiber network or just help boost an existing mobile network. This seems like a great idea.
Well, I mean, technically, yes. The question is, does it cost too much to have that backfill, right? Like, is this a cost-effective way to solve that problem? And that ultimately what a lot of these moonshots hope to do would be to not only demonstrate that this is engineering-wise possible, but also bring it down to either a certain level of cost or demonstrate a certain level of value that would make it worthwhile. And so in some of these situations, like, Waymo eventually became a part of Amazon, like you pointed out, Tom, they were able to push forward with this. They had the goods, they had the money, they had the wherewithal, and they have done what was, 10 years ago thought to be something that would cost billions of dollars, and we didn't know what the promise was going to be. This does not seem to have had that same amount of impact, and you now have another player in this world with Starlink, where Elon was able to leverage with SpaceX cheap carriage up into the stars so he could spread out all these satellites, and now that's a real next-gen competitor to this engineering solution.
And if for anybody who
but-
remembers Project Loon, which we talked about back in the day, which then just became Loon, it was similar to this, although it was floating balloons in the sky rather than, a large pine tree in your backyard type thing. And Loon wound down in 2021. It was a good idea, but hard to service. You got to go 20 miles high to service this balloon, and there were a variety of regulatory concerns at the time.
I will say this is valuable if you are an entity that wants complete control over that infrastructure. If you're relying on Starlink, you don't own Starlink. You have a service plan with Starlink. So if you want to do something in particular, whether it's in a national sovereign interest or you're just a corporation, whatever, this could be a viable option, especially if you're trying to connect a remote or rural area, and you don't want to rely on Starlink, because then you are until there's another satellite internet provider, you're kind of sort of stuck with them.
I don't necessarily see this too much as a competitor with satellite any more than, mobile wireless is a competitor with fiber. They are competitors in some ways, but they're also different ways of delivering connectivity. One is good at broad, open country coverage, and the other is good at short. It's really difficult to run fiber or even get a satellite signal here, so we could run it there. I feel like this is complementary to satellite in a lot of ways. You can fill in the gaps of a satellite coverage company by using this to find those little places where the satellite coverage doesn't fill in.
Yeah, possibly. I do believe what you say. I do see this as, I'm living in a remote mining community. We can set up, my country has decided to go all in and build up its own broadband network. They could use these connected, and then they'll connect it to a central hub where everyone.
Well,
else
I guess that's what I
just-
mean. This is infrastructure. Not service.
Oh yeah. It's exactly. Well, no, I totally agree with you. And again, this is.
So I don't
about,
think, and satellite is about service.
Well, but
it is,
also
but satellite is the infrastructure, because someone had to put all those satellites in.
Well, sure, yes.
we don't know with this in terms of its reality as infrastructure is exactly how durable it is, because that's one thing about something that is as relied upon as internet, is that if it's a little finicky, then it's not going to be particularly well worth it. And we can come up with edge cases as to how this would be best used, but the question is, especially for technology that is being kind of pioneered and isn't in wide use, is, are there enough people that want to buy it, either from an end user perspective or from a middleman perspective? And so it makes sense, Tom, what you were saying, that maybe this is a telco play, but also this kind of tech is not totally foreign. Maybe these telcos have their own spin on solutions to stuff like this, and they wouldn't want to buy that. Or they
also, I was entirely wrong about this. They are not spinning Taara outside of Alphabet, so it is in fact exactly like Waymo.
Bam!
They're setting
There
it
we
up.
go.
They're setting it up as its own thing, still under Alphabet. It just won't be packaged in with the other stuff.
Oh, it feels so.
But
I
it
felt
doesn't-
so bad this entire segment that I totally botched that Waymo.
But it doesn't
thing.
take it off the balance sheet. Is the thing?
It doesn't. No. So my other stuff wrong, but the Waymo thing I said totally right.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is. I chose this story today because I was like, it sounds like Google, Alphabet rather, is feeling like Taara has some legs.
Yeah,
Let's take it out
you're
of the
right.
incubator. Let's make it an independent company, still running it, under our umbrella. But yeah. Maybe they've got more interest after all.
There's something to it. They're like, you know what, we can, and maybe it still isn't a business on its own, but maybe it's enough of a business to be in the Alphabet portfolio, right? So,
I mean, yeah.
No, this would say then that they want it to be a part of they want to show what it can make, as opposed to the other version. So everything I said before, reverse it, except that Waymo thing that Tom corrected me on, and now I'm right about. Make sure that you remember that part of my contribution.
No one is better than anyone else in this group. We're all very, very smart.
I think you're better
And human.
in this case.
Yes.
I believe
Sarah.
in the hallowed belief of no comment.
How robotic
I
of you,
don't know
Roger.
if that's a great commandment for a podcast, Roger.
Yeah.
It does make the show a lot shorter.
But then you never argue with anyone. You know?
Daily
Who
Tech
wants to do that?
News. Daily Tech News, no comment.
I blame my smoke alarm. It threw us all off. And
It
by the
has
way,
been.
it stopped on its own, so I don't know what's going on there.
A siren song to irrelevance.
All right, so let's talk streaming. In the early days of streaming TV, you might have, as a company, given somebody a digital copy of episode 1 of a series. Get them hooked. Then get them to tune in to regular airings, or even delay episodes from showing up on streaming till a day after. So you watch your thing on HBO. Maybe you get it on streaming a day after, but they want you to tune in. But the tables seem to have turned.
Yeah, exactly. Remember when you would get the free episode on iTunes of a brand new show, and then they would say, but if you want to keep watching, well, you could pay for iTunes, or, it's Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Hulu was famous for this, and still a lot of shows, they air on a Monday, you get them on Hulu the next day, with the idea being like, if you really want to see it right away, you're going to have to watch it on broadcast. Well, I think we're over the hill, and cable has gone from being the thing you used streaming to drive to being the thing you're using to drive people to streaming. HBO's True Detective Night Country, which ran on HBO and Max last year, is set for a run on TNT, the cable network, starting on March 28th. And then from April 3rd to April 7th, this one is even more direct, TBS is going to run all 3 seasons of Hacks with 2 episodes back-to-back per night every day leading up to the season 4 premiere of Hacks, April 10th, on Max. So the idea is like, grab those people on TBS, get them into Hacks, and then they'll have to go subscribe to Max to watch it. So I just thought it was interesting to kind of mark this moment in time that we are definitely in the world where the companies are no longer trying to deny that cable is dying and still trying to push you to watch on TV. They've gone the other way. They're using what's left of cable while it's still around to drive you to streaming.
Or Tom, and this time I don't think I'll be totally reversed and then re-reversed.
Well, let's see.
Yeah, what you got, Justin?
I think that this is 2 things. Number one, it's what you're saying that, yes, the cable bundle financial incentive for these companies is not the same thing that it obviously was 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And now they want to prioritize their direct relationship with consumers. And prior to the writer's strike and actor strike a year ago, we had entered into an era of untold content glut. There was, I think, like the last year before the strikes, like 450 original series that had come out. And part of that you saw during the strike, a lot of content that was being shared between competing services and sold between competing services. But also, it's a cheap way to fill time. Who knows whether or not they're going to do another season of True Detective. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. That's an anthology series. But they certainly can throw it on TNT because TNT has a hole in their schedule and they're able to save on their budget and make that a more economical proposition for them. So yes, all roads lead to cable is dying. And yes, streaming is the solution from a corporate perspective, but it's also a solution from a content perspective to these fledgling, ailing channels.
Yeah, and I would say we're agreeing on all of this because the reason you save money to fill the schedule of TNT and TBS is because you don't want to spend money on them anymore. You want to spend the money on streaming. And I think the glut was caused because they were trying to feed all the beasts. They were like, we need new stuff on cable, and yeah, we can use that on streaming, but we don't want to just do this. We don't want to use the stuff from streaming on cable. We need to feed them both.
No,
And
it was a lot of the glut was on streaming. The glut was because
they were
streaming
trying
was
to build
infinite.
up streaming,
Yes,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
So they needed originals for streaming to get you over
Yeah.
there. They couldn't just use all the stuff from cable. And now they're like, you know what? Let's just spend on streaming and not spend on cable is what I'm suggesting there.
Yeah, yeah. But now they're like, okay, well, we have something. We need
then,
something
yeah,
to do on Wednesday.
Now we can go the other direction, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Are there any shows that were streaming originals that you think that would work well as a, out for the general populace? Like, I mean, HBO, obviously Warner's.
You mean like
has-
the TBS streaming or
Yeah,
model
so
for
so
Hacks
something that would be
they're
on
trying
Max.
around?
Although all these places sell to each other now, so it's like there's
Yeah.
no reason why a comedy special or a comedy show that was on HBO wouldn't end up on
Netflix
Comedy
won't-
Central.
I doubt Netflix will ever put any of their original, like actual original exclusive stuff on a broadcast network, but anybody else will.
Sure.
And you never say never with Netflix. They're always against something until they're not, as we've seen with live sports and all
First
kinds
4
of stuff.
seasons of House of Cards, you can have it at a price.
I mean, why not? Right? Throw that on.
Well, I can think of one reason why not.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Orange is the New Black
Depends on
is
the
a
audience.
great example.
There
Justin.
we go.
Good one.
No, see,
There
nope,
you
sorry,
go.
sorry. That one stays home. But again, first 4 gently used seasons of House of Cards.
Yeah, on my TV, the digital second channel. Yeah, why not?
But going back to the idea that it used to be, okay, well, if you're using a streaming service, back in, I don't know, let's call it like 2011, I had decided I'm just going to cut the cord. No more cable for me. Which technically is still true, although I pay for YouTube TV, which is basically cable. But then it was sort of like, all right, we're just going to watch the stuff we really, really care about. And if we want a season of Mad Men, for example, buy it through iTunes. And I do believe, if memory serves, that we did have to watch it at least a day late, and it might have been a little bit more. And we
No,
were
that's
okay with that because we were like, this is how cord cutting works. You just have to know that you're sort of the stepchild in this situation, and it's totally different now.
Yeah. And by the way, HBO, TNT, TBS, the Warner Brothers Discovery is not the first to do this. Lots of other broadcast and cable networks have been playing around with this, Paramount, Disney, etc. This is one of the biggest announcements all at once. And it's becoming common. It's becoming common enough that it's not like, oh, wow, what a stunt. CBS showing Star Trek Discovery, on their broadcast network. It's like, oh, yeah, this is just what you're going to do now for all the reasons Justin just said. It's cheaper. You don't have to go acquire something because you already got it.
Well, and also for these cable channels, it's a cheaper solution. Even if you don't stay within your corporate parent, if you can say,
Right, because you don't have to
all right,
build something from scratch. Yeah.
develop a show and cast it, and yes, you own it, but it's like, do you really just need to eat innings? And that's the big question for cable as we enter into its elder years here, is like, what is the future of it? Does it just become a tile on the streaming service, in which case it does always have some element of its corporate parentage, or maybe there is still trading between some of them, but in general, it is primarily relying on you, the subscriber of that service? Does it just become a free or a fast channel? So now that's where it just eventually ends up on Tubi? Or are some of these just not going to survive? Are we like 5 years away from channels that we used to think of as pretty important to the culture just kind of winding down because even as one of those two solutions, it's just not worth it?
Yes, to all of those. I think it's not going to be one solution that appears across the board, but rather a mix and match of all of those. And I think it's very telling that a lot of the premier specialty channels eventually kind of sort of just evolved into, we're going to show syndicated programming because it's cheaper. And that was even before streaming was as cemented as it is today. I'm talking about 8 years ago when, you stopped calling, or no, 20 years, was it 15 years ago? It was called TLC. Stopped being called the Learning Channel. It was just TLC because there was very little of the original style education.
Well, that's just typical.
Well, I know,
drift,
but
and that's been happening for decades. I don't.
Well, I
think
know,
that has
but that's what
anything
I'm
to
saying.
streaming.
That's just that. I think that's just part. This is just part of that onward decline of the content.
I mean, but that was them changing the name because they were getting more popular as opposed to now
right,
when everything is getting less popular.
What's
So
interesting
it's
is
like,
that there are
The
channels
John
that
and
have
K
gone
plus
away.
8 era of TLC.
big
TLC
time.
was doing good.
There are a bunch of channels that have gone away that you don't realize. I think Justin hit on the question. When is the first channel that goes away that you're like, what? They're shutting down USA Network or Bravo?
I mean, like TLC is a great example.
They'll never shut down Bravo.
TLC is a great example where it's like if that just went away, it would
Would
be
you notice?
a bunch of people showing a bunch of John and K plus 8 gifs on Twitter, and that would be pretty much it. But
Yeah.
the question is at that max ad density that is the fast channel standard. When a cable network falls below that, and so you've strip mined it for everything you possibly can, when is it not worth it to have cable carriage? And we're getting to that point. We're getting to that horizon line.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, look at MTV these days. Like it's reruns of ridiculousness, whether you like the show or not. Just too many of them in a row, and Catfish. It's like that's the only thing that MTV has right now.
Yeah.
And it's still a network. You can still access it, but not a lot going on there.
Fox shut down a ton of their cable channels. Fox Action Movies, Fox Comedy, Fox Crime, Fox Life. You probably didn't even realize these were around. Fox Movies in general. They shut those all down last year. NASA shut down its cable channel, and now it just does its streaming. Bunch of rebrands of sports channels like Bally's became FanDuel, stuff like that. That's not the same thing, but there's a lot of these secondary channels that people sort of forget that have been shut down. So here we go.
Which, by the way, a lot of that also happens because in these renegotiation periods with the cable carriers, they're the ones saying, "Look, we're not going to pay for it," and because of the last few years, as the cable negotiations became so consolidated with the mega companies, now it's not like these channels are speaking for themselves. All of the channels that are under the ESPN umbrella are being spoken for under Disney. And so now it's like, if these things drop off, it's a question of the corporate parent because of the negotiations that are going downward.
Well, folks, one way we get ideas about what to talk about on this show, if you're like, where do you get your ideas for all these stories? Go to our subreddit. You can see a lot of the things we're going to talk about and even upvote stuff that you would like us to talk about. You can find our subreddit at reddit.com/r/Daily Tech News Show.
So, Justin, we've got a fun Discord here at DTNS Live, but the company is looking to expand its social reach for all. What is the latest?
And specifically into the games themselves. Discord has rolled out a social SDK, that is a software development kit, if you're not in the biz, enabling game devs to integrate Discord's feature into their games. Things like friends list, cross-platform messaging, and voice chat with or without a Discord account. I'm sure that this is obviously timed with the Games Developers Conference that's happening right now out in San Francisco, and I'm sure there's a bunch of people having interesting conversations about games that currently exist that could have deeper social graph reach and new games that might be created. And it got me thinking, are we set for possibly a renaissance to very immersive social games that might not be the most exhilarating or exciting when it comes to graphics or missions or things like that, but rather someplace that you just want to go hang out, like spend a bunch of time on because your friends are there, like a Second Life or something like that.
I think it's interesting because Steam tried, they're still doing it, but I used to use Steam like this for the longest time, for like 5 years. There are a couple of games I played frequently. One of them was Left 4 Dead, and that's a very communal game. It requires 3 other people besides yourself. If you don't, the bot shows up to fill in that space. But there were regular people I would always play with, and I would actually talk to them outside of the game because the Steam interface is beyond the game. And so, and much like Discord, when they were on, I would just chat them and say, hey, what's going on? How's life? On the rest. If they can incorporate that and then get people to sort of like, hey, I really like these sort of Discord features, why don't I sign up? You can sort of expand sort of these communities on Discord, so you can create a space that isn't just about gaming, although gaming will be sort of the lead in for it, but you sort of just like, it's like bringing in people into a community through through a particular aspect, in this case gaming. And I think there is definitely a desire. I mean, Discord's all about this right now, but you need to understand how Discord works in order to use it. If it's someone who isn't that familiar with it, this could be a great gateway drug for that service.
Yeah, especially because you don't need to have the account. So suddenly any game can have this community aspect. It doesn't have to be something that the developer has to think about and strategize and build in. They'll want to think about and strategize it so that it makes sense and people want to use it, but they don't have to build it. So it becomes an easier option to say, well, what if we, use this as a chat area of the game? Not everybody wants to do this, but enough people do. I think you're right, Justin. More types of games could benefit from that effect.
Yeah, I'm less curious about where it goes with games currently and more interested in the idea of like, okay, so if you're at GDC right now and this is the announcement and you're just sitting around and you're like noodling, you're like, man, what if we just hang out the game? Like what is like the lowest barrier that you have, but you just want to hang out with friends. You want a thing that you can do to meet people or hang out with the people that you like.
That's how the metaverse happens. Somebody comes up with a really good idea for that.
Oh, you mean like actually incentivize the connections that you have with people as opposed to just shoving a gigantic, expensive technological solution down their gullet?
I mean, right now, this is what Roblox does. My kids meet all their friends via Roblox. And unfortunately, they also meet other people who I often have to tell them may not be children and that they should not talk to them. But I mean, that's what you want, right? You want a kind of and this is actually great for developers. Say your game bombs and it's just terrible. You could still hang on to that community because that's still a very important aspect of whatever from what else you want to you create down the line to kind of carry that over. And one of the things that you see this with a lot of PUBG style games is that what makes it so engaging is all the people you constantly play with, because you have your regulars, you have your newbies, and because many of those games are free to play, you have a low barrier of entry, so you're always inundated. Well, ideally with new people. Same thing with Roblox. So, I mean, the only downside I see is that it could sort of nerf out the type of games. It sort of narrows it down to ones that are most popular. But again, if you can incorporate the community aspect of it, I don't know how portable those communities.
Well, games do that already. It's not like there isn't community aspect in games. This just makes it easier.
Well, it just makes it easier, but ideally it should be able to transcend the game, right? You don't have to be in that game in order to meet your friends. Although that's what the game publishers would like.
I mean, I would imagine that part of that fear is why many people would not want to include it, right? If your friends are easily imported, if your community is easily exported from that game to Discord, to another TeamSpeak, then you are essentially relinquishing control over that community. And so I can understand why games that do have massive communities like Roblox and Fortnite and all the Blizzard games and everything, they already got their people there. They're like, fine, whatever. Like, we should be starting a bank and having a credit card. We need to start like creating infrastructure for this city that we've built. And that's why we're throwing concerts for them, so we can just give them more reasons to be here. But if you're just starting up, then this is going to be an advantage. You're going to have deeper relationships with your players, and the communities are going to form easier and faster. But at the same time, they might be friends offline now, or off your game, off your platform, and so they might leave easier.
Yeah, because you can just go off into Discord and never use the game. Although that could be fine, right? Like it could be
For
that-
Discord, it's great.
well, no, it could be a pivot for the game maker to say like, oh, well, we're still leading this community. We still run the Discord server. What can we do with that?
Yeah. True. Yeah.
And one of the things about fandom is that it often goes beyond the game, right? It goes into merchandising, but it goes into fan created or fan inspired works that sort of feed into
Because it's a
community.
relationship with the
Exactly.
property, right?
And so when you build that, there tends to be a stickiness to the property. There are people who love Star Trek and might think like, the last two films were stinkers, or they're not big fans of the streaming series.
Well, look
but
at
they
Star
stick-
Wars too.
Oh, yeah, Star Wars, but
People
they're still
who are Star Wars fans but hate everything they come out with, but they're still Star Wars fans.
But there's subreddits dedicated to those fans. They moan about all the new Star Wars stuff, but they still love the property, which means that they're always going to be valuable in some aspect.
Well, this is like my grand unifying theory on all fan forums. All fan forums begin as, oh my God, I can't believe you like the right thing. And then they crest with, we've made original art based on the thing that we all like. And then that will inevitably herald the first boll weevil of, I think the thing sucks now. And at that point, you are in for the rest of the existence of that community. It is up to the mods to watch at the walls and create rules that then incentivize people to have constructive dialogue and fight off the people for whom will constantly complain about the thing that they love so much because they complain about it every day.
But
I would just
Justin-
add, there's also the gatekeepers and you're not loving it right. That goes right along with the it sucks.
Yeah, now we're into the swirling
Now we're-
palette.
And
of the
I
hate
will
slicing and
add
dicing,
my
yeah.
one philosophical fortune cookie line into this is that misery loves company, and those forums are always packed.
Oh yeah.
Well, Roger, let's talk robots. Generative AI can be an indispensable tool in the workplace. We're all getting used to it in our new modern world. But would you take orders from a robo-boss? Do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, so not just me, the scientists in Poland did a study to see how humans would react if they had a supervisor, one human and one robot. The robot is the one you see on the screen, Pepper, the little kind of cutesy humanoid robot. What they did was they split this group into two. One they had with the human supervisor, the other one with Pepper, and they were tasked with just simple tasks of changing the file extensions on computer files. Now, both the robot and the human were both instructed to give encouragement to the participants to kind of like, oh, you speed up their work. What they found at the end of it is that the ones that had Pepper as their supervisor completed 37% less work than they with the human supervisor. And one of the analysis that they did was that there was a bit of an uncanny valley on the Pepper being somewhat human looking, talking to them, and people having difficulty processing. For example, if Pepper said like, we really need this by the end of the day, wouldn't have the same impact if it was Tom saying, you need to have this because we need it by the end of today. There's less of urgency, or maybe you don't take it as seriously. And so my question to you is, if you had a robo-boss, a robot supervisor, or perhaps a robot middle manager, how would you think you would operate? Would you think you would operate just as well, poorly, or better? And would it matter if the robot actually looked or acted more human, or it wouldn't matter if it looked like a giant toaster?
I don't know. I mean, a humanoid robot is probably harder to ignore if you're supposed to do your job than a robot that looks like a toaster. But I would say, okay, so if Tom says, "Hey Sarah, you got to do this thing today," it's like, all right, I take that seriously because we're all working together, we're a team. If the robot boss says that, and I'm like, I actually ended up with like a weird human excuse. I had to take my dog to the vet or whatever. Like, if I say this to Tom, Tom goes, okay, I got it. Let's all work together to figure this out. The robot might say, you're fired. because you had two choices: do it or don't. And in the don't category, I know there is more nuance to this, but that's my initial concern is, it kind of puts employees into two categories of like, you're complying or you're not.
I mean, that's the binary way to look at it, though. But what if it was actually more open and transparent and honest than any human could be, right? Because all human management is on some level a reaction to how they were managed as a past, either by their parents or other bosses, and they are creating rules for themselves and their employees because that's, the way that they've decided to do it. What if this was just a supremely intelligent robot for which you could say, hey, look, I'm not going to get this done today. What are the repercussions? And it's like, you're kind of at a 60% production rate, so you can probably survive this one, but next time there's really going to be some problems. Like, it might actually have a bigger, a more clear reaction you have with the work. However, I will say that the only thing that I can compare this to is the robot boss that I have now, and it's on my wrist, and it tells me when I am moving and when I'm not moving. And I got to say, sometimes it's good to see that I have moved, but I don't know how much that would be different than the natural endorphins I get. I do know that sometimes, like when I'm a solo parent, as I am right now, because my wife is out of town and I've spent all time with the baby, and then my watch reminds me that I'm behind on my metrics, I look at it with a kind of shocked bemusement that Walton Goggins looked at Sam Rockwell last night on White Lotus.
That is not a spoiler, by the way.
Kids, ask your grandparents, because I don't think any of us were old enough for that conversation. However, I took this study to mean I don't think the consequences are the same when it's a robot as when it's a human. When it's a robot, I don't think I'm going to have to work as fast because the robot's not going to be actually disappointed with me, right? We have a lot of simplistic ways we think about, work. It's like, well, I have to do this or my boss will fire me. Right? That was the example you were given, Sarah. But I think there's a lot of subconscious things that play in is like, well, I don't want my boss to be mad at me. I don't want to have a conflict. I'm going to have to see them, around the office. And then I don't want it to be uncomfortable. Like there's so many other things that play into it that don't play into it with a robot. When you know it's a robot, you're like, yeah, I'm not going to be uncomfortable because that's not real, So, and I just don't feel the same way about it. So it's not even that I would guess they slowed down on purpose. It's that they just didn't feel the need to impress the robot because the robot can't be impressed. We all know, like, yeah, it's just ones and zeros back there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wonder if you married it, if you
marry the robot, then it's a different conversation.
Yeah, let them be supervisors.
If you combined
Freudian glitch.
If you combined it with, say, like a generative AI chatbot that can say, like, oh, like you can't get it done today, but we really need it. You're letting the team down. Like, could it effectively guilt trip you?
No,
it could leverage your other human relationships. I think that it could be very manipulative.
But I don't think it could effectively guilt trip you itself. It would need to bring in the other humans to do that. We love it when computers are assistants. Even your example, Justin, was an assistant. It's telling you, hey, it's time to move. It might be naggy about it, but it's not in charge of you. It's not your actual supervisor. And someone in chat, I wear lederhosen. Oh, I get it. Was saying like, y'all take orders from Waze, but we don't. We take advice from Waze, and quite often don't.
We
take advice from
demand
Waze,
that Waze tell us where to go.
Waze
and
is
then
our
we listen
assistant
to it.
giving us the navigation. It's not our boss telling us where to go. We decide where to go. So I think it's very different when we put a computer in a supervisory position where you're like, I just don't feel the same hierarchical need that we have with other humans.
So would it have to be like the secretary for the board on Severance? Like it would be like an LLM that would be repeated through a human?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because then you've got the human interaction thing going on. And even though the board is telling you something, you're looking at a human and you don't. Yeah. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, because like one of the examples I used like in terms of like emotive properties is like in the movie Moon, where Kevin Spacey's character Gertie the robot has all these emoticons to display the quote mood of the machine. Like, would that matter? Or I guess
that Gertie's still an assistant, though, not
Yeah.
a supervisor. Even though
But-
it's got supervisory powers.
in a way, I mean, in the movie, I guess
We don't like to disappoint computers, but we don't want them to be in charge.
sounds
That,
like
in fact, you see that all the time when we talk about AI and robots. It's like we're afraid they're going to take over.
But wait a
we're
minute.
afraid they're going to be wrong. We don't
But
want
Tom,
them.
We are at will employees, right? So it's like, really, is the line between boss and assistant all that different? Like, we're not slaves. We are working at a place because we want to, and ultimately our
I
relationship.
think there's a subconscious hierarchical thing built into humans where we know, like, when someone is just helping us and we don't have to listen versus, oh, they're my boss.
I mean, there's a
yeah,
power
but
dynamic.
at that point, if a robot is your boss, then the engineer that fixes the robot theoretically is actually your boss.
And maybe that's what you need to do is you have to meet that engineer and then suddenly it all clicks.
Don't worry.
Or is the engineer
Don't
more like
pay no
your
attention to the
boss's
man
doctor?
behind the curtain.
Yeah, this is getting very existential.
Yeah.
But you
I
know,
like it. Good one, Roger.
These are the kind of conversations we have sometime. We also talk about tariffs, and in fact, Dan Campos has a really cool update, video update for those of you who are watching us on how companies are reacting to some of those tariffs.
This week in Tariff News, we have 3 different reactions from technology and automotive companies to recent announcements. Samsung canceled its plans to move part of its refrigerator production plant from Gwangju, South Korea, to Mexico. This was confirmed by Gwangju's mayor, Kang Ki-jung, due to the 25% tariff threats made by the President of the United States. Currently, Samsung has 2 factories in Mexico, one in Querétaro focused on home appliances and another in Tijuana producing TV sets. Samsung is also considering relocating part of its dryer manufacturing from the Querétaro plant to the Newberry factory in South Carolina. On the other hand, Arno Andlis, the CFO of the Volkswagen Group, stated during the presentation of the first quarter results that a car plant cannot be moved and relocated overnight, a point reinforced by the CEO Oliver Bloom, who confirmed that there are no plans to move production out of Mexico. Finally, a report from the Wall Street Journal mentions that BMW announced it will absorb the additional cost caused by the 25% tariffs. This will impact the Series 2 and 3 models assembled in San Luis Potosí, as the company aims to avoid affecting car prices, at least until May 1st, when the measure will be reassessed. These vehicles account for 12% of BMW's total car sales. For more details on these stories and more, check out this week's Noticias de Tecnología Express. We won't charge extra if you listen from the United States. Back to you, amigos.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate
Thank you very much, Dan. Gracias, as they say. All right, let's check out the mailbag.
Daniel wanted to set us straight about Russian cuisine. We had our debate about school cafeteria food versus convenience store grub, and the difference between pierogies and piroshkis came up. And Daniel writes, as a heritage Russian speaker born and raised in America, I'm hoping I can clarify the pierogi-piroshki confusion. Pierogi, or pirog, just means pie. You can have meat pies, dessert pies, etc. Pirozhok, or piroshki, is just the diminutive form, which is something Russians love to do. Tom, I'm sure you're familiar since I know you studied Russian, but for the other folks in the show, think dog and doggy. So the zhik, the piroshki, that's the E in doggy. Same thing. I think Americans tend to associate the word with either one or the other, but I'm not sure why. Maybe this is an example of semantic narrowing, but I'm not a linguist. It's also important to mention that there are tons of similar yet distinct variations depending on where in Eastern Europe you are.
I'm sure that's extremely true, Daniel, and thank you for that. Just for fun, because this is something that I actually have looked up quite a bit, because sometimes people will interchange the two words, and I'm like, I think they're pretty different. So you tell us if Google's AI search overview got this right, because I said pierogi versus piroshki. What's the difference? While both pierogi and pierogi are Eastern European pastries, pierogi are baked or fried, while pierogi are boiled or fried dumplings, often with different dough and filling variations.
Yeah, take that, human Daniel. What do you
Well,
know?
now this is also the search overview that told us
You're
to put glue on
fired. Your
pizza.
boss just called.
Okay, all right. I'm just saying this would be an overview that somebody would see at the top of a Google search these days.
Sure,
So
sure.
you gotta do your research, as they say. Gotta do
Das
your
Vidania, meatbag.
I would suggest anyone head over to their Eastern European bakery and buy both of these and then eat them
and
for dinner
enjoy
let us
them
know.
because they're good.
Yeah. Pirog and pierogi is definitely dog and doggy. Like one is just a small version of the other. And I think depending on where you are in the world, they have differentiated using those two words in different ways. So you will find times where it's like, no, pierogi is this and pirog is that, but I don't know if it's universal.
I mean,
It's
I
kind of
think
what
also
Dan
when it
is.
comes to culinary things, look, there's a million different variations of sauce and salsa, which means the same, which,
Right.
is sauce,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But barbecue sauce and spaghetti sauce and red sauce are
Getting
three
sauced.
totally different things.
Getting saucy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never thought of calling salsa sauce.
But it's literally what it means, right?
Yeah,
That's
I'm like,
it's so weird to think about.
you don't put sauce on nachos. What are
No,
you
I mean, like,
doing?
But you are.
If I say I need
But that's
red
what
sauce,
it says on the can. It says cheese sauce.
Yeah, if I say I need red
cheese
sauce,
sauce
I'm
is
going to
cheese
think of
sauce.
marinara sauce, right?
Sure.
But
Yeah.
if I say
Yeah.
I need salsa roja, I'm going to think of a picante sauce or something that's like a blended chip dip thing.
Well, then you go with restaurant style salsa, which is chunky.
Again,
and
yeah, but
that's
they're
like-
both red sauce.
Right? Because
I know,
that's what the
I know.
names mean.
Because they're rojo, salsa rojo.
Yes. No, this is good. This is good, Daniel.
Roja.
Thank you for reminding us of regional colloquialisms. And let's all eat pierogi because they're really good. Reminder.
I actually had a meal at Barakas, which is a Jewish fried sandwich place, and didn't realize till I was there that that just means turnover. That's all it means. But it also means it's delicious.
Remember that you can send in all of your comments, food or otherwise, sometimes tech. Keep them coming. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. Justin Robert Young, you're the best, as always.
Hey.
Whether you're eating red sauce tonight, we're calling it marinara. We hope that you are enjoying solo time with the little Babu. And
Yeah.
where can people keep up with your work otherwise?
Can you guys tell that she's been sleeping better? Because I made multiple references to current television shows. Yeah, so you can find me at The Attention Mechanism with Andrew Main. We're not going to do an episode this week, unfortunately, because there is a lot going on. But if you want the latest on what is happening in AI, there's nobody that I know that is more knowledgeable than Andrew Main, and I get the chance to talk to him each and every week and bring that conversation to you. Head on over there, The Attention Mechanism. And if you listened last week and there was an old episode, don't worry, we got that fixed. The episode from last week is live now.
I wondered about that. Thank you. Yes. Go make sure you get the new episode then. Good to know. Hey, folks, during the show, if you're watching live at dailytechnewsshow.com/live, you can get to either the Twitch or the YouTube from there, or on LinkedIn. We're live on LinkedIn as well. You can vote on titles at dtns.showbot.tv. I mean, you can vote when we're not live, but those votes won't be seen by anybody. So get on over there and find out what folks have submitted. Stealth Dave is leading the voting right now with, do we really want to welcome our new robot overlords? It sounds like maybe we don't. And then Batfig 2001, kind of in the same vein, but a different topic. I don't want my MTV.
I wonder how many people don't remember that.
I want my MTV. It's made famous in song by Dire Straits, but then how many people have heard Money for
Dire
Nothing?
Straits. Oh,
I mean, it's a song that you probably go, oh, okay, yeah, I've heard this before, but that was
There were some lyrics in that song that are very first 4 seasons of House of Cards these days.
it's a song where you say, well, it wouldn't be the same
Time and place.
song today.
Time and place.
Wouldn't be the same song today.
No.
No. Larry in Atlanta, can you run Doom on Discord? because you can run Doom on everything else, so it doesn't count until you can run Doom on it. Panay, the hardware guy from JPEG84, that one's pretty good. We've got Discordant Gaming from G. James B. Robo Boss, Respect My Authority from Clinton Woodward. There's so many good ones in here. We got the Pierogi debate. Clifford the Big Red Meat Pie from Batfink 2001. I'm sorry, Sarah. You're not Batfink. You're Sarah. Sarah, what did we go with?
I mean, you can call me Batpink if you want. It's fine. But Batpink 2001 is our show title winner today with I Don't Want My MTV.
I don't want my MTV.
No.
Indeed. We do not. What we do want is your support. So thank you, everybody who supports us on LinkedIn, Laminar Rainbow always giving us stickers on YouTube, Minion Monkey 5150 resubscribing for the 15-month at Tier 1 on Twitch. They've been subscribed for 14 months. He says, I definitely need and want my Daily Tech News show. Happiness, subscribed with Prime. So it didn't cost them anything, but we got a little bit. We got a little bit cheer from Eyewear Lederhosen, Brian M64, and Brian M64 also subscribed for the 42nd month, the Douglas Adams subscription period. Thank you, Brian M64. Eyewear Lederhosen subscribed at Tier 1. Thank you for the subscribe at Tier 1. That's awesome. Zoe brings bacon with some bits. Cpots 50 for the 59th month. And we got follows from Sofa King Grumpy, Eyewear Lederhosen, Bezo 1, Swill 6, all over the weekend. Thank you, everybody, for supporting us however you do, including patreon.com/DTNS.
Speaking of being a supporter, we would love for you to show your support for us. Good stuff at dailytechnewsshow.com/store. Pick up a mug. Rock a t-shirt. Maybe you need a mouse pad. Maybe somebody you know needs one. It could be a fun gift. Our new DTNS Live logo, we're very fond of it, and we would love to see it out in the wild. So the more, the merrier. They're great ways to support us and the show. And if you do, and you're comfortable sending a pic of yourself in maybe one of our shirts or using one of our mugs, send it in. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. Reminder, we are live Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. That is 2000 UTC, and you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. We're back doing it all again tomorrow. Our photographs that are edited with AI tools, still photographs. Shannon Morse has thoughts and will join us with them. Talk to you then.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.